Our next in-person mastermind is coming up this fall, and we're heading to Vegas. We're kicking off this mastermind with an in-person tour at Zappos downtown Las Vegas campus, where you'll learn their strategies behind company culture, core values, employee engagement, and customer service. Looking outside the legal industry for business concepts and strategies allows you to gain fresh perspectives and innovative solutions that can be applied to improve and differentiate your firm's operations. Following the tour are the mastermind hot seats. Every attendee has the opportunity to dive deep into their business obstacles with their mastermind group and coach. We believe that nothing beats working on your firm in person, so join us in Las Vegas on November 7th and 8th. This is your chance to break through barriers, spark new ideas, and accelerate your law firm's success. Limited spots are available. Visit maxlawevents.com for full event details and to grab your ticket today.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrux. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. What's up, Jimbo?
Well, Tyson, if we were recording this episode yesterday, I would have called it I'm Mad or Jim's Mad. But we're flipping it like a pancake, like our buddy Bill Umansky said at MaxLawCon 2019. So here we are. We're turning it around. We're going for broke. We are all in on optimism. And I told my team today that I don't want to hear one complaint, one gripe for the next 6 weeks. We're going through some major transitions at Old Hacking Immigration Law, and I want everybody rowing in the same direction. I got no time for negativity, and so I'm just not even listening to it.
All right. So have you seen the show that is on Max, which was on HBO, that it's called Showtime, I think? It's about the Lakers. Have you seen that?
No. I was getting ready to start it, and then they canceled it, so then I thought I wouldn't watch it.
It's worth a watch. They definitely, take liberties with it, but there is an episode near the end where Pat Riley he's pissed, right? He's angry because the team they've gotten comfortable and they're champions. All of them are champions, but so like they've all kind of gotten comfortable and they've all just kind of been bickering at each other, like where they'll all come they'll snipe. So they'll come up and say, Hey, Riles, tell Kareem to do this. Hey, Riles, tell Irvin to do this. And he got to this like breaking point where he called them all out in the same room. He says, Magic, you're saying this about such and such. And Kareem, you're saying you retired 2 months ago. It really called him out and said, from this moment forward, we're stopping all that. We're going to get all this out right now. And we're going to move forward. There's none of this fighting each other. There's none of this bickering about each other. We're all going to get on the same page and we're going to move forward. And it's a really cool speech, right? And so it kind of reminds me of what you're just saying and maybe people aren't bickering, maybe people aren't fighting each other, but sometimes you do have to just say, you know what, we're going to do this. We're stopping this crap. We're not complaining. We're not going to do this. Like you said, we're gonna flip it like a pancake, and we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna progress. We're gonna, as Jason would say, that relentless solution focus is what you're gonna focus on. But so yeah, so what's going on with you that you were so angry yesterday that you had to change your mindset?
Well, before I get to that, you remind me of a story from law school. So Amani and I both wrote onto law journals, so we didn't have the grades to grade onto law journals. So in our class, I think they take 30 new members of Law Journal each year, 10 grade on by their GPA, and the other 20 go through this writing competition. Well, at the end of that second year of law school, then everybody applied to be the editor or the managing editor of the Law Journal. There were 9 other people applying for the editor-in-chief position, and apparently they all complained about each other. So I was in there and I'm talking about leadership and optimism and getting the thing done, and our friends Pete Salsick and Amy Gunn, they were the outgoing board, so they selected me to be the editor-in-chief and Amani to be the managing editor. Amani didn't apply to be the editor-in-chief. She always likes me to remind people. In any event, about 6 weeks into our gig, the 9 people who did not get editor in chief, they were all made just editors, which means they supervised the second years on editing these law journal articles. And all they did was complain, and all they did was gripe and moan, and they kept telling me what they weren't going to do. So I haven't seen Winning Time yet, but we had a meeting just like that where I said, listen, I'm sick of all the bickering. I'm sick of all the bitching. I'm sick of hearing what you're not going to do. What I want to focus on today is what are you going to do? So I think clearing the deck sometimes when there is that spirit of negativity is important. As far as what's going on with us, so for the first time in the 15 years that we've had old hacking immigration law, well, I guess not technically, but certainly on this scale, we had layoffs this week. So we laid off 4 people, and 3 weeks ago we laid off 2 people. So in the last couple of weeks, we've laid off 6 people. It was they were not fun conversations to have. Several of them did not see it coming. I think some of them did, but we simply aren't signing up as many cases in September and October as we usually do. And there's just not enough work for everybody. So I went back and listened to a podcast that I recorded with my dad before he passed away for Father's Day about 3 years ago. And in there, he said, Jimmy, you got to cut until you're profitable again. So we're going to have to make do with less, and we're going to have to do it at a time where we are transitioning into a whole new set of software for the firm. So and our office is under construction. Our phones are under construction. Our software is under construction. There's all this stuff, none of it fatal, none of it dire, none of it unanticipated, but there's just a whole lot of stuff going on right now. And I realize that I, as the leader, have to be better, have to be more positive, have to flip it like a pancake, like Bill said in his presentation, like Jason says about focusing on solutions. And I frankly have so much to do. I don't have any time. Even if I was inclined to listen to complaining, or even if I was inclined to complain about our problems, I don't have time for that. I simply don't. Yeah.
Do you remember the episode number on that? Because I want to look that up.
I don't know the episode number, but Becca shared it with me. It's in our chat for Max Law, but if you just type in Father's Day Maximum Lawyer, you'll get it.
Very cool. Yeah, I want to check that out. So you had texted me. We were texting back and forth a few weeks ago. So I had an idea that this was coming, and you'd said, we just kind of got too fat. And so why do you think? Let's dissect this a little bit. Why do you think? Because I honestly think that we're in that direction where we're building, we're in growth mode. And I think that there's this tendency to just keep adding when you don't really need to add. But I'm wondering if you've identified any trends as to how it happened where you got heavy.
I think we were sharing out lots of responsibilities to lots of different people, and we probably shared too many responsibilities to too many people. And now we have to consolidate those responsibilities to less people, not just because of the financial. I mean, Amani and I have been saying to each other all week that the scrutiny and the oversight that we're like looking at every department, we're looking at every person that works there, we're seeing what's working, what's not working in every department. And I think that sometimes when things are going well, you lose that edge, you lose the old eye of the tiger, right? And you just, by definition, because things are going well, you don't have to have that same level of scrutiny. But we were saying, like, man, when we turn this around, and we're confident that we will, we still need to maintain this level of scrutiny and to have these same expectations of the team members that we have.
What's interesting is something we're noticing when it comes to our firm is, like, we've shifted away. I mean, we do have, VAs. We still have several VAs, but we've shifted away from that. We've definitely shifted towards hiring more stateside A players, which is, it's more expensive, especially whenever you're comparing it to, B and C players that are virtual. I mean, you're talking about a substantial increase in salaries. And so I think that is another thing that people, if they do shift that, it's one of the benefits of hiring remote employees too, that are overseas, is that you can get them for a significant reduction. So that's something you have to consider as well. But how much do you think the getting heavy just it happened because you had your eye on the wrong things, where you're focusing too much on the future and not necessarily internally enough?
Great question, and something I was going to bring up. So I think that there's another aspect to this. Jim likes to talk about how many employees he has. Jim likes to talk about fast growth. Jim likes to talk like he knows everything.
Can I say something with that really quick? Because I want you to finish your thought. I get caught up in that too. Like I've had to stop myself because I hear people say, "Oh, I have 50 employees. I have 100 employees." And I'm like, "Oh, I got to have that. I got to have that." And so I get that. I get that too. I get the urge. I completely do. But continue your thought.
Let me just say as an aside, I remember when you and I finished recording Maximum Law Minimum Time, which focuses on the 3 stages of law firm growth. And we sort of looked around and said, well, we're sort of in stage 4, maybe stage 5, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I remember us sort of saying, well, like, do we have a message for those people? And the funny thing is that you and I have now experienced a lot of the things in stage 4. Like, I've experienced real fast growth, and now I'm experiencing contraction that's necessary. Right. So, Gary Vee told us to document the journey long ago. And my confessional in today's podcast is sort of part of that, of being honest and open with our listeners about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I do think there's a big ego part of it. Right. And an ego, I would say ego plus futuristic thinking plus eternal optimism, which is a problem of mine. And then not focusing on the right things in the here and now. I'm always drawn to the shiny object. I'm often drawn to the things that are coming down the pike more than the day to day. And so I think that we weren't looking at the right things. And Imani was sounding the alarm much sooner than I was ready to listen to it. And I think that I should have done a better job listening to her. I mean, I view it as a personal failure that I had to lay these people off. And I'll tell you this, one thing is I'm going to be a whole lot slower to hire people now because I don't want to go through that again. Like, I want to make damn sure that the people we have are at capacity before we get to a stage where we don't, or where we have people that we don't need anymore.
Were these in-seat employees or were they remote?
They were, let's see, it was a U.S. marketing team member. It was 2 U.S. marketing team members. It was a paralegal in America and a paralegal overseas. So
is by like the 3rd or 4th one, do they have an idea that, hey, this is what's coming?
Well, it was all virtual. And, Imani, Adele, and I sat up in the conference room and we had a Google Meet open and we would just call one in at a time. So nobody knew what the other one was doing. And then now we've gone and talked to each department about what happened. And we thought about doing, and my sister, Carrie, who works for Big Pharma and has been through mass layoffs before, suggested that we have an all hands on deck. But there were a lot of people who weren't affected by it. So we didn't think necessarily that we needed to talk to everybody. So instead we just did it department by department. Anything that you feel like in this process that you've screwed up? Oh, lots. Yeah. I'm always learning. So, I mean, for sure. So,
and by the way, that was a bad question. I'm talking about specific to the actual layoffs. Like when it comes to that, anything in that process that you think you could have done a better job of?
Well, I will say, I think it's always dangerous to lay off people from marketing because they know.
Are you tired of the marketing guessing game? Does your website feel more like a digital billboard than a client magnet? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. And it's time to stop the uncertainty and start getting real results. Let's talk about your marketing spend. Are you just shelling out money every month and crossing your fingers? Do you ever wonder what impact your marketing is really having on your revenue? Well, it's time to take the guesswork out of the equation with Rise Up Media. We've been working with them for over a year, and the feedback from our fellow members has been fantastic. Rise Up Media is here to take your marketing to the next level. They'll even perform a full audit of your online presence, giving you the good, the bad, and even let you in on what your competition is up to that you're missing out on. And the best part, there's no obligation, no catch, no pressure. If you decide to work with them, their contracts are month to month. That's right. No long-term commitments tying you down. So what are you waiting for? To learn more about how Rise Up Media can transform your firms, visit riseupmedia.com/MaxLaw, and Rise is spelled with a Z. riseupmedia.com/MaxLaw.
They know what's important to you, and they know where to hit you and hurt you. So I would say the shoe hasn't dropped yet, I think the particular person that we let go, one of the people isn't happy about it. So I don't know what'll happen yet, like what might show up on Glassdoor or LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever.
I didn't think about that. That's one of those things you got to take into consideration these days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As an aside, I was saying to Amani last night, we went on our walk, and I was saying, dude, we need to set up the reverse of Glassdoor, where we get to leave reviews on past employees anonymously, like they do to us.
I shit you not. I had that same thought this morning because I think it's unfair. I had that exact same thought this morning. I was in the sauna after the gym, and I was like, "This is not," because it was someone. I saw someone bitching about an employer thing. I'm like, this is just not right. It's like legally, I don't even think we can bitch about it, but it's like, yeah, I had the same thought about that. It's not right.
So lots of lessons. I'll say a couple things. Number one is you got to keep a level head, and going for walks with Amani has been really helpful. Talking to Adela often. I mean, we're in a period now where we really need to be over communicating with everybody. And as we're trying to pull out of this slump of signing up cases, I mean, I've got that intake team rocking and rolling like we haven't in a really long time. So I'm confident we're going to turn it around, and the energy is real good in the departments that I run. But you do have to over communicate. You do have to try to be as transparent as possible. For any employee, when people get laid off, I think that's a scary time. So you got to do what you can to reassure people, let them know that, you remain committed to your goals and your dreams, and that the need for immigrants to have lawyers that are smart and helpful is still there. So it's just a matter of recalibrating and then stabilizing people, because a lot of people in our firm don't like change. And so you got to take that into account, both when you're laying people off and when you're also moving into new kinds of software. So there's a lot going on right now, brother.
Yeah. So I wanted to look up something really quick. So Jack Welch had this thing. It's that 20-70-10 rule where, and it's often misinterpreted, by the way. It's not exactly what I'm about to describe. So for those of you that are familiar with it, don't beat me up too much. But essentially, he would cut the bottom 10% of employees every year. Those are the low performers. And by the way, that's not exactly what it is, but in a nutshell, it's kind of what it is. So given that sort of framework, and like the top 20%, like is, the 80-20 rule, but would you consider, since what just happened, would you consider doing something like that going forward?
Well, I don't want to characterize the people that we left as the bottom 10%, because I don't want to talk about people's employment with us and that kind of thing. But
I'm not saying they are. Okay. So that's on me. That's not on you. Yeah, that's on me.
No, that's okay. I understand the question, and I've thought about that. I will say that when push comes to shove, you're asking yourself, who are the have to haves and who are the can live withouts or nice to haves, right? So I think it's just that it becomes sort of that simple, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes you have to make cuts where you might not necessarily choose to. So I think one of the values of having a firm retreat and an annual check-in with everybody is sort of like when people go to the mastermind, it's a clarifying time. We always say at the mastermind, somebody's about to get hired and somebody's about to get fired. So when you have these moments set out in your calendar where you're getting ready for your next year and you're saying to yourself, do I really want to go to battle with them for the next year with these people or without? And I think I don't think you want to do anything as draconian as Jack Welch, but I do think that it does. I mean, you did it through the top grading system. I do think there's a time and place for regular assessment. I mean, here's the way I think about it. The NFL spends a shitload of money every year on scouts, the NFL scouting combine. They have a roster of 53, which is interestingly right around the number that we had when we went through this, right? And so every year they take a look at these high blue chip prospects. They go looking around for undrafted free agents. They look for talent all over the place, and they probably have a 30 or 40% turnover every year, right? And they're just always trying to improve. So I don't think that the practice of law necessarily needs to be like that, but I do think you have to be open to the possibility that there might be better options for you out there. And I also think along those lines, I understand why you're moving to more A players and away from VAs, but I do think that there's some stuff that we just need to say, this is a set of tasks. I need someone that can do this task. That doesn't necessarily translate into a 40-hour a week W-2 employee.
Totally agree with that. And that's where we still have those VAs, and that's where we're replacing those with AI and automations too. But yeah, definitely agree with that. When it comes to the employees, I want to talk about the decision making a little bit. And so let's say I'm going to use, departments A, B, and C. Department A has 3 A players. Department B has 2 A players and a C player. Department C has maybe an A player and, a B, B, and C. How much did you think about, okay, let me just shift one of the 3 A players over into from Department A over to Department C, and then just clear the house when it comes to the third department, Department C? I mean, did you consider just moving people roles because they are A players, or was it no, that department's too heavy, we just have got to get rid of that person? So how much did you, I kind of overcomplicated this question, how much did you consider just shifting people into different roles because of who they were and that you knew that they're A player versus just getting rid of them because they were just, that department's too heavy?
How many people came to your wedding with you and Amy?
210, I think.
Do you remember when you sat down and were trying to figure out who to sit at which table?
Yes.
Remember how sometimes there's the Randy randoms, but then also, there's people you wanted to be together. So there was a little bit element of that as we were looking at what you call Department A, Department B, and Department C. And actually, it's funny that you frame it that way because in operations, we have 3 pods. So there was definitely, interestingly, there was a 5th person who was sort of on the block, and we decided to keep that person. And once we made that decision, then we started, because here's what you have to remember, Tyson. Somebody's running Department A, somebody's running Department B, and somebody's running Department C. You don't want to handicap them and cut their legs out from under them. So you have to make sure they're all properly staffed. So there was some movement of A players to another department to balance things out. So, and it was funny watching some of the decision makers who would be affected by who ends up in their little departments talking. I mean, we literally went to each department head throughout the firm and said, tell us about your expenses you can cut and the people that you can cut. And so there's definitely, you have to spend time thinking about how's it going to work after this happens. Yeah.
What's the new makeup of the team look like? Yeah. That's gotta be a really big consideration.
The biggest, I think.
Yeah, totally. How much of when it came to the decisions, were these majority of them support personnel, meaning they were not making the widgets, they weren't preparing the immigration documentation and all that, versus, so yeah, like the people that would do that, like the attorneys, you have attorneys that are, getting that stuff done. You got paralegals that are getting that stuff done, versus, someone that might be in operations that's, admin, so were you, how was the mix up?
1 marketing person, 3 people from intake, because intake was too big, because intake was built for a higher number of leads that we weren't getting. It was that marketing person, and then it was two paralegals. So it was mostly, like I said, and the truth of the matter is that as much as we've tried to do marketing that doesn't involve Jim's YouTube channel, Jim's TikTok channel, and repeat business, we're doing all the other stuff, Instagram reels and all this other stuff that is being done by the marketing team. It wasn't what was moving the needle. What's moving the needle marketing wise, unfortunately, is still the same old stuff that Jim does that's always worked. So until we figure that out, we probably don't need as big a marketing team. And so that's why that became pretty obvious.
Is there, and we're going to have to wrap up in a moment, but is there do you think that maybe there's an optimal number for your firm that you just need to be and it's not that you don't want to grow more, but is there maybe an optimal number that can be at your firm that will still allow you to grow when it comes to handling more cases and everything, but you just don't need to exceed that number? Your face is, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say.
Have you been following me and Amani around? Because as you might imagine, she's pressing her advantage at this time of turmoil to hit me over the head with, see, I told you, we don't need to grow. We're too big. We're not getting any bigger. No, we can't get any bigger. The reason we're having these problems is because we've gotten bigger. And that's the eternal question. That's the next science experiment, which is that true? Is it true that the reason we're having these problems is because we grew, or is it because we didn't have proper supervision, proper analytics, and proper supervision?
Interesting. Well, to be continued. I think that's
There's a cliffhanger for
yes,
you, huh?
I like dun dun dun. All right. Well, let's wrap things up. I enjoy this podcast. This was a good one. It's always fun, chit chatting with you. But let's wrap things up. And I'm just going to start with the Google review. I'm just going to say it. We talk about flip it like a pancake, but we got to some like really nitty gritty stuff. If you got something from this, please give us a review if you don't mind. We would really appreciate it. It helps spread the love. There's I don't think many people realize the importance of getting those Google reviews, so we can help spread the love to other attorneys, because they really do need some help. So help us do that. And then, I'm not even going to talk about the Guild. You'll heard about the Guild at this point. Just join us in the Facebook group. If you want to join us in the big Facebook group, just search Maximum Lawyer and we'll go from there. But Jimmy, what is your hack of the week?
We aren't creating enough content. As much content as we're creating, it's not enough. So you got to be more creative. You got to be more fun. You got to pull out that phone and just create basic content. I typed a LinkedIn post every day this week. It took me literally under 10 minutes. So you just got to get better and more consistent. And if you're operating under the misassumption that people are going to get tired of you or they're going to see too much of your stuff, that is never going to happen. There's an unending stream of content, which I suppose by this exhortation I'm increasing. But at the end of the day, you cannot create enough content.
I think that's right. I beat myself up quite a bit about not producing enough of it, but you are 100% right. You got to put it on your counter. Got to get it done. So I'm sure some people aren't going to like to hear me say this, but here's my tip of the week. You can work harder and it's not going to hurt you. I can just tell you that I've put in more hours this week than I was, 10 years ago. And guess what? I fucking love it. And it doesn't bother me one bit. And so when you tell yourself, oh, I'm tired, I'll get to that tomorrow. I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think you're lying to yourself. You can work harder. You can. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take time to spend time with your family and get relaxation time and all that. I do all those things too. But when the work needs to get done, the work needs to get done. Roll your sleeves up and just do it. Just stop lying to yourself if you're saying you're too tired. Just get it done. There'll be a time to rest. But sometimes you just got to roll up your sleeves and go do the work. So, all right, Jimbo, love it. Good talking to you.
Yep, good stuff.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your hosts and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.
Before you go, have you heard Jim and Tyson talk about the Guild on the podcast or in the Facebook group? If not, you're missing out on some really exciting things happening with Guild members and their law firms. The Guild includes a community, accountability, trainings, group coaching, and in-person events like our quarterly masterminds. Inside, you'll gain support, tap into a network of connections, and continue learning, a common theme among successful entrepreneurs. Investing in a community is like the self-care of business ownership. Surrounding yourself with other people who get it is crucial when you're creating a rock-solid foundation to build your business on, one that's strong enough to withstand setbacks, transitions, and growth. So head to MaximumLawyer.com/the Guild to join now and get started today.